Don't be afraid of Stellantis, and don't be afraid to strike if need be. These are returning Stellantis workers, about 400 of them, as they had a rally here at the UAW Local 1264 to show that Stellantis has a lot of work to do. Stellantis basically says if they don't get what they want, they're going to strike. Stellantis is on the brink of bankruptcy, and they're shutting down all production facilities. But wait, there's a twist. Tim Kuniskis, the man behind the Hellcat and Demon, might be coming back to save the day. Is this the last hope for Dodge fans? You see, Stellantis is in deep trouble, facing a storm of problems that could sink the whole ship. But here's where it gets interesting. Tim Kuniskis, the guy who made Dodge cool again, might be stepping in to replace Carlos Tavares as CEO. Can you imagine what that could mean for Dodge fans and budget truck lovers? But hold on, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of drama going on behind the scenes, internal conflicts that are tearing the company apart. And that's not all. The UAW is threatening to strike, which could be the final nail in the coffin. Oh, and did I mention there might be Chinese investors waiting in the wings? Watch carefully because this story is about to get wild. You've heard about Stellantis Troubles, but here's the kicker. Their stock has nosedived 50% in just 6 months. That's one of the fastest drops in automotive history. What could cause such a catastrophic plummet? The answer might shock you. Imagine a company worth billions suddenly losing half its value. That's exactly what's happening to Stellantis right now. This isn't just a minor setback. We're talking about a freefall that's making investors panic and employees sweat. But why is this happening? Let's be honest. Stellantis has been struggling for a while now. Sales are down across the board, and their big bet on electric vehicles isn't paying off as quickly as they hoped. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real problem is coming from within. You see, Carlos Tavares, the current CEO, is under more pressure than a drag racer's nitrous tank. He's been pushing hard for an all-electric future, but not everyone's on board with his vision. Rumors are flying that the board is looking to replace him. Can you imagine the tension in those executive meetings? It's like a powder keg waiting to explode. And it's not just the big wigs who are unhappy. Word on the street is that employees are getting restless too. They're worried about job security, especially with all this talk about transitioning to EVs. It's like trying to change tires on a moving car, risky and bound to make some people nervous. Now, you might be thinking, surely they can turn this around, right? Well, it's not that simple. The auto industry is changing faster than a Hellcat can do a quarter mile. Stellantis is trying to keep up, but they're struggling to find their footing. Remember Tim Kuniskis, the guy we mentioned earlier, the one who brought us the Hellcat and Demon? Some folks are saying he might be the knight in shining armor Stellantis needs. But can one man really save a sinking ship? That's the million-dollar question. Speaking of millions, let's talk about that stock price again. When a company loses half its value in 6 months, it's not just bad news, it's catastrophic. Investors are jumping ship faster than rats from a flood, and that's making it even harder for Stellantis to fund their ambitious plans. But here's where it gets really interesting. While all this drama is unfolding in the boardroom, there's another storm brewing on the factory floor. The UAW is flexing its muscles, and they're not happy with how things are going. They're threatening to strike, and if that happens, it could be game over for Stellantis. Think about it, a company already on the ropes facing a potential work stoppage. That's like trying to win a race with 4 flat tires. It's not just unlikely, it's nearly impossible. So what's next for Stellantis? Will they manage to pull off a miracle comeback, or are we watching the slow-motion collapse of an automotive giant? The next few months are going to be crucial. Every decision, every new model, every negotiation with the union, it all matters more than ever before. Remember when we said every negotiation matters? Well, Stellantis just threw a wrench in their own gears. They're facing off against the UAW in a high-stakes showdown that could make or break the company. But here's the twist. Stellantis thinks they can outsmart their own workers. Will this gamble pay off, or push them closer to the edge? You see, the UAW has voted to authorize a strike against Stellantis. This isn't just some small disagreement. It's a full-blown battle over alleged violations of the investment letter in their 2023 agreement. The union isn't messing around, and they're ready to walk out if their demands aren't met. But Stellantis isn't taking this lying down. They're trying to play mind games with their own workforce. Can you believe it? They're actually telling UAW members that a strike could weaken the company even more. It's like they're saying, hey, if you strike, you might not have a job to come back to. Talk about pressure. Now, you might think the workers would just fall in line, but here's where it gets interesting. A UAW rep fired back, saying Stellantis executives are running scared this week. Ouch. The union's making it clear they're not buying what the company's selling. They even pointed out that their previous stand-up strike got Stellantis to commit to reopening the Badger plant and building the Durango in Detroit. Looks like the UAW's got some teeth. But let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about Stellantis and the UAW. This whole mess is a perfect example of the bigger issues shaking up the auto industry. Everyone's scrambling to shift to electric vehicles, but it's not as simple as flipping a switch. You've got workers worried about their jobs, companies are trying to stay competitive, and unions are fighting to protect their members. It's like trying to rebuild an engine while the car is still running. Stellantis is trying to put on a brave face, telling everyone who will listen that they're committed to investing in the U.S. and creating jobs, but actions speak louder than words. With ongoing layoffs and production changes, it's hard for workers to feel secure. No wonder they're ready to strike. Think about what's at stake here. If the UAW does go on strike, it could stall Stellantis production at a time when they can least afford it. We're talking about a company that's already on shaky ground, facing a potential work stoppage. That's like trying to win a drag race with sugar in your gas tank. It's just not going to end well. But here's the real kicker. This labor dispute isn't happening in a vacuum. The whole auto industry is watching how Stellantis handles this, and it could set the tone for other companies dealing with similar issues. Will they find a way to work with the UAW, or will this turn into an all-out war? And let's not forget about the customers. That's you and me. If Stellantis can't get its act together, we could be looking at fewer choices, higher prices, and maybe even the end of some iconic brands. Imagine a world without Dodge muscle cars or Ram trucks. It's enough to keep any gearhead up at night. Just when you thought Dodge muscle cars were on their way out, Stellantis might have an ace up its sleeve. Remember the name Tim Kuniskis? He's the mastermind behind some of the most insane vehicles to hit the streets. Now he might be coming back to shake things up in a big way. Kuniskis isn't just any auto executive. He's the brains behind the Hellcat and Demon, those fire-breathing monsters that put Dodge back on the map. He's got a knack for creating vehicles that make gearheads drool and competitors sweat, and now word on the street is he might be stepping back into the ring at Stellantis. Why is this such a big deal? Well, Kuniskis isn't your average suit. He's got gasoline in his veins and a deep understanding of what makes car enthusiasts tick. When he was at the helm of Dodge and Ram, he didn't just make cars, he created legends. Remember how the Hellcat shook up the industry? That's the kind of magic Stellantis needs right now. But here's where it gets really interesting. Kuniskis coming back could mean a major shift in Stellantis' direction. While the current management has been all in on electric vehicles, Kuniskis is known for his love of good old-fashioned horsepower.